أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد ومحمد. يا إخواني وأخواتي, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear brothers and sisters, may the peace of Allah be upon you, inshallah. So, in conjunction with my lectures about this book, which is full of some interesting and intricate details about the history of Penchak Silat and its inherent spiritual initiation. So it is a great introduction for that. There is also some lexical coverage, lexical notion of techniques and stuff like that, which is quite interesting because it helps to understand the structure of the martial art, the orientation, the link between languages, may it be from Arabic language or more Malay globalized language like Bahasa or else. And also, there is a metaphysical link between the name of the techniques and the conception of the cosmology and universe in the eyes of the martial art founders. So you can find many different layers of influences, and it is a quite interesting mix. So, to not let only the Westerners talk about this topic, we have to take close examination to the sayings of the people concerned by this tradition. Le milieu, the area of development of such a tradition. So, for many people, having an external eye, and it is the case with the Westerners, is the ultimate proof of everything. But there is a problematic human flaw in this conception and behavior. All kind of even scientific investigation are made and are dictated by a philosophical background, a philosophical understanding of the truth, of its implication, of its definition, and so on and so on. So you have to hear the people which are concerned, which are genetically bound to this tradition, and not only some random people from recent era that make their living by studying and selling books regarding some tradition. That's why I selected this text. It is from an Indonesian author. It is also a woman. It's a publication of Sunan Kalijaga, which is in fact the International Journal of Islamic Civilization of Indonesia. And the content is quite interesting. So, peace to everyone. Welcome. So, treading the footsteps of Wali Songo as the shaper of Islam Nusantara tradition. So here, treading the footsteps of Wali Songo, I already talked about spiritual personalities, which are referred to as the equivalent of the 9 sense in English. And sometimes there were more than 9, sometimes 10, sometimes even more. But to understand this, it is a da'wah institution. So it is like an office, a council of scholars that managed the emergence and distribution of Islam in the area of the island of Java. So they are like the fundatory peers of the Islamic faith in the Java island. It not mean that Islam before never entered stuff like that. There was some maritime trades and stuff like that. So Islam was since the 7th century present in Sumatra, for example, which is another island of Indonesia. Even some Arab population and Persian settled there. But it is interesting because the island of Java is the earth of the Majapahit kingdom. So the earth of the Indonesian soul as such. It is a central part. So it is interesting to understand its tradition. So Nusantara, the word Nusantara, Islam Nusantara, is in fact a combination of two words. Word Islam, which is a faith, a religion, a way of life, and Nusantara, which is the name, ancient name of the archipelagos of Indonesia. And even more, for some people, Philippines are considered land of the Moro and were part of, to such extent, of the Nusantara. There are Nusantara, technically archipelagos, so a group of islands. So the two, and the writer of this article is Siti Mulyana. So it is a woman, a Muslim woman, an Indonesian woman. It is very important. We are not here to promote domination of or the kind that the people which are concerned with this tradition. So it is more fair to give some credit. Also, she had an extensive bibliography, access to an extensive bibliography, which is here. Bibliography, many books in Indonesian language. I think that most of the Westerners are not, even scholars cannot reach, because it's difficult to gather book, and also they have no special interest in what the people of the past or of the real tradition wrote. And that's why there is not too much citation even in this book from Indonesian writer. So this is a weak point of this kind of books. So abstract. So Siti Mulyana and Muhammad Nasruddin stay in Sunan Pandanaran, Yogyakarta, so the city of Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Email s.mulyania362 @gmail.com for those who are interested. Abstract. The focus of this article is to examine the footsteps of Wali Songo in shaping the tradition of Islam Nusantara. So in fact, the Islamic tradition of Indonesia, and especially, yes, Indonesia, because Islam Nusantara is for all the archipelago, all the groups of islands, was shaped by these prolific figures, which are the Wali Songo, aka the Nine Saints. So Wali, it's a well-known word in Arabic. Allahumma wali man wala, stuff like this. You had this word in the Hadith corpus of tradition. Also, in the Quran, there is a notion of proximity, of first authority, and stuff like that. This is a word charged in semantics. And so there's not only some introducer of the Islamic faith, but also shapers of a specific tradition of Islam, Islam Nusantara. And we're gonna see how they made it. As is known, the Wali Songo period was a period of formation of the Nusantara Islamic tradition, which began in the 14th century AD. This topic is considered important because the period of formation of the Nusantara Islamic tradition needs to be relevant to today's diversity. In addition, the purpose of choosing this topic is also a response to the religious attitude of contemporary Islamic society and the various notions that have emerged under the pretext of Nusantara Islam tradition, which is forbidden because of shirk and superstition. So, even with the emergence of this tradition is subject to attacks from different affirmation of orthodoxy in the realm of modern Islam. And which is interesting in these articles that there is a close investigation of what made this tradition and why this tradition has an orthodoxy of its own. Even it's different from the so-called orthodoxy of modernism, which is for many is equivalent to petrodollars monarchy like the decadent Saud and all that stuff, which is problematic because they was pushed in power by the Westerners too. So there is a conflict, and there are no the example of submission to God or anything else. They are mundane individualities that can do good most of the time, do bad, and you don't have to have any kind of degree in research to understand that from the first look. It is like pornography. You don't have to consume this kind of niche cinematic on daily basis to recognize it when it pop-ups from anywhere. It is self-explanatory. So, the same kind of people label the other as committing shirk, as committing association and superstition. So maybe the dollar own more weight that or currencies that ancient belief of the ancient world. Studying based on socio-historical aspect is the study method used in writing this article. So studying based on socio-historical aspect is the study method used in writing this article. So the writer set up a methodology. The conclusions reached are: first, Wali Songo is the main agent who plays a major role in shaping the tradition of Islam Nusantara. So, from the get-go, the conclusion is clear. First, Wali Songo. So, this external sense are the main agent in shaping the tradition of Islam Nusantara. So the specific way of the Islam practiced in the archipelago of Indonesia. Second, there are three efforts by Wali Songo in shaping the tradition of Islam Nusantara, namely prioritizing religious substance rather than formality. So here, very important. So the batin over الظاهر. So the substance of the egg in priority to its exoskeleton. It's interesting. It's cocky. I don't know the word in English. So the substance of the egg and not only the shell. Sorry. So giving priority, not denying the existence of the shell, but prioritizing substance. Substance is more important in nutriment than the shell of an egg. The shell of an egg is here to protect it, but when you have grasp on this egg, it's time to consume it. The nutriments are not in the shell, it is in the egg. It is this which will nourish the body, as spiritual substance nourish the mind, the soul, the spirit, and so on. Spreading religious substance through popular culture and prioritizing openness to local tradition. So his three key points here in the methodology of the Wali Songo and the methodology that worked, because to this day Indonesia is the country with the highest number of Muslims on earth. So it says what it says. It's not a definite proof of everything, but numbers speaks by themselves. Second, there are three efforts by Wali Songo in shaping the tradition of Islam Nusantara, namely prioritizing religious substance rather than formality, spreading religious substance through popular culture, like the art, like the carving of wood, like poetry, like martial arts, stuff like that, which are inherent parts of the Nusantara Islam. And prioritizing openness to local tradition. So there is also an openness to local tradition. So maybe by accepting the non-problematic local tradition or redirecting the energy of this tradition and accommodate them with the new faith, which is Islam. So the keywords of these articles are Islam Nusantara, tradition, and Wali Songo. So three notion. So A, introduction. Islam Nusantara is known as friendly Islam, with all the local tradition and culture that surrounds it. The Islamic values contained in all the tradition and culture of the Indonesian people today are certainly inseparable from what was inherited by their predecessors. So there is a notion of continuity, of the observance of a certain attitude in managing local affairs and affairs with people of other faith and other ideology, namely the early Islamic community. In fact, this kind of behavior is not only a sophistication of a late acceptance of Islam, but it is also a way of doing of the ancient early Islamic community, where the early Islamic community is considered as forming the initial foundation of the Nusantara Islamic tradition, which is different from Islamic tradition in other countries. As it is generally known that Islam entered the archipelago since the 7th century AD, after demise of Al-Masih, Isa, so of Jesus Christ. However, the Islamic Da'wah, so the Islamic board of propagation, only began to be carried out massively and systematically in the 14th century AD by the Wali Songo, so 7 centuries later, by this particular individual, which had a strategy of implemented Islam and firmly root Islam in a dominant religion in the region. The development of Islamic da'wah is also inseparable from the existence of the previous large Indo-Buddhist kingdoms, which at some degree, if I understand correctly, history, reverted to Islam at its stage or another, like it is the case with many great empires of the past, including Sassanid empires and stuff like that. You have Sassanid is a little bit different because it was not just systematic, but you have great civilization that switched to Islam at a stage of or another. So, and it coincided with also collapse of the Sassanid state and collapse also of the Majapahit kingdom. The development of Islamic Dawah is also inseparable from the existence of the previous large Hindu-Buddhist kingdoms, especially after the collapse of the great kingdom of Majapahit. So in Japanese, Maja means bitter. However, the name of the kingdom, which is also known as the Majapahit kingdom, is more likely to be derived from the name, of Manuspati, an ancient capital city during the reign of Arjun Vijaya, which is believed by the Japanese to be the result of the reincarnation of Lord Vishnu. Read more in Thomas Stanford Raffles, The History of Java, Yogyakarta, Penberit Narasi, 2014, page 453. Sorry. And the power of Bre Kerta Bhumi. During the transition period from the Hindu-Buddhist style kingdom to the Islamic style kingdom, the Islamic da'wah occupies its momentum and forms a new society. So here, the term new society, which the author used, referred to the Islamic community who were formerly followers of the Kapitayan and Hindu-Buddhist beliefs, while the term old society, which referred to the people of the Kapitayan region and Hindu-Buddhist alias non-Islam at that time. Basically, in establishing the foundation of the Nusantara Islamic tradition, Wali Songo still refer to the and do not leave the basic pattern and orders in the tradition of the old society, so that all things and values that existed in the old society did not necessarily disappear in the Islamic community of the archipelago. It's just that there may be changes in its application in the new society due to adapting to the teachings of Islam. So in the propagation of Islam of Wali Songo, or its integration in the Indonesian society, it was not made by clashes of values and virtues, but by redirecting adaptations and openness. So accepting, redirecting, and maintaining. It just may be changed in its application in the new society due to adapting to the teaching of Islam. Because the main thing from a tradition itself is the substance that is in it. Then from this dialectic, new values and tradition were born in the Islamic Nusantara community and formed a strong social order. However, in today's society, the emphasis on substantial religious values is slowly being replaced by the formalization of religion, and problematic, which is problematic. It's like you hold on a dead corpse without soul, and this is due to the Western philosophy of materialism, which is rampant and which has bad influence on the world, including Muslim societies. Because if you look closely, the Muslims are in the middle, the region of Hijaz, for example, which is the point of the center of Islamic faith with the Kaaba, city of Mecca. You can see it is in the Middle East. You say Middle East because it's not extreme Orient nor it's Europe, Arab in Phoenician language, and Asia in Phoenician language, Asu. And you have this word, from example, Asiya, the wife of Pharaoh, the one which will go in paradise, Asiya, which is from Asia, Asia. So the system of Islam, when it is too much influenced by the West, lose its substance and lose its soul. So you have to understand the danger of this implication. So there is some detail of the formalization of religion. The term formalization of religion refers to the term Islamic formalist, which according to Ubaidullah Ahmad, the use of the term refers to the religious attitude of community groups who, on the one hand, are very firm in holding Islamic teaching related to communal movements, but on the other hand, in your teaching, that emphasizes the need to give respect to differences in understanding and belief in others. So they pick and choose what is important in religion to serve their agenda of domination of the masses. And in your other hadith, promoting peace, promoting respecting the difference of others, even they are not Muslims, and stuff like that. So they choose because they are on a bad level of energy. They are abased, sufala, in this world and in the hereafter. In addition, Ubaidullah Ahmad also mentioned that formalist Islam is the entry point for ideological and political interest. So it is linked to materialism. When you spot this kind of people which are not at peace with themselves, which want to take you there and there to change your way of practicing your personal interaction with God, when you go to the mosque, stuff like that. There is some kind of people who want to teach their way of doing things. Don't accept it. Take their advice. Maybe there is some good in it. You can reuse the substance of the advice, but don't formalize to the form they want to shape you in. It is important. You have to oppose them. You have to say to them, we are not from exactly the same school and stuff like that, so I practice differently, but please respect. And don't try to engage in great debate with this kind of people. There is some hadith of speeches of Imam Ali, for example, say when to make a resume of the substance, when you debate with a dumb, he is always winning because you can't only have grasp on intellect when you use such a basis for debate. But with the people with no intellect, you can't have an hold of him. He will not accept, like he didn't accept the hadith relevant to openness, relevant to acceptance of differences. He don't accept it. The word of Prophet Muhammad, which are considered in Islam as in the Quran as wahi, revelation. He didn't accept this. And so he would not accept some of the pious word that to try to utter in humility. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. مرحبا سعود. أهلا. And so Ubaidullah Ahmad, Islam formalists versus Islam localists. So it is in fact a book in Indonesian. Study Pribu Mi Sasi Islam Wali Songo Dan Kiai Siganjur. Journal Adin, volume Sapporo, donc volume 10, number 1, February 2016. Hal, so maybe Halaqa, the port 236. So that Islamic sorry. So that Islamic groups who reject the tradition and culture of the Islamic archipelago try to eliminate the formal aspect of the tradition and culture itself without considering the substance of the tradition and culture. So there is a paradox, of course. Paradoxal stances of the hypocritical kind. Therefore, and it is in principle also in Islam, the tongue say something and the doing of the people make him saying the truth or lie. It is not the tongue that only lie. It is also the action. And the tongue lie when it not fits the action it pretend to do. Therefore, so when someone rejects hadith based on his disgust of the truth of an idea of non-hyperdominance of its religion current on other for political agendas and well-being of its own self, so greed, it is a kind of disobedience to Allah Almighty and the rules He imposed on the humankind. Therefore, it is important to rediscuss Wali Songo religiosity, which prioritizes substance over formal aspect in the tradition and culture of the archipelago, especially in the midst of the rampant formalization of religion, which is slowly destroying the traditions and culture of the archipelago because they are considered contrary to Islamic teachings. So, every time when a group of dumb individuals go to Hajj, for example, go to pilgrimage, they came back when they have a plan. They plotted a plan collectively or individually. They come back as a super hero of Islam. And so They start to attack everyone around them like they are polytheists, disobedient, and stuff like that. Not that much involved in Islamical practices and stuff like that. So it is a problem. It is a problem. It's like a disease. Some people take a plane, go to their obligation, and became for a travel to come back to their home religious figures or examples or mizan, balance between right and good. So it is a problematic behavior which is exist also in Indonesia. We got some stupid people who try to use the definition of Tawheed to such an extent. Tawheed is simple. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. This is the first part of the Shahada. La ilaha illallah. And it is self-explanatory. It is even more easy to reach than the other parts of the Shahada, which is Shahadatain, so the two attestation, and the second part, Muhammad Rasulullah, which is Muhammad is the messenger of God. So the first part is very self-explanatory because all mankind normally is born in the fitra. And fitra is the religion of monotheism of God. So it is easy for mankind to understand that they don't have to associate other divinity, because association is made on associating other divinity to God. La ilaha illallah. And you don't have to expense the meaning of Tawheed to such an extent that even taking, for example, a medication or this kind of, I don't advocate taking medication. Medication for me must be, it is just a small talk from me. Medication must be not from chemicals. It's from the edible kind of eating. It is the best advice for your health that I can give you. Try to study ancient medicine, medicine of the East, medicine of the Muslim scholar, for example, like Ibn Sina, stuff like that. There is a huge tradition of organic medicine in Islam. And you are not here to make the good day of big pharma or I don't know what kind of poisoners in this world. Every time you take something chemical with strong effect, it will imbalance your metabolism. We are in an era in which the mass media, for example, will convince the weakest of us that even changing sex artificially by taking hormone and making surgery will not affect your health. And in fact, it will imbalance all your body mechanic. When a body is made to secrete male hormone, for example, and you replace it by, you shut it by feminine hormone, your body fight inside against himself. And so your circles of, at a cellular level, will short because there is too much energy inside your body in trying to shape it the other way. It was naturally made to be at its highest working rate. And so it is, of course, problematic. But we are in this kind of era. So of course, when you take some herbs as medicine and stuff like that, it has effect because of the design Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made on it. And that's why it is a science. And so when you take something with knowledge of the virtues that Allah put inside it, this is not shirk to believe that it will have a physical effect on you. It is not shirk. It is not accepted as a definition of association of deity with God, which is the meaning of shirk. So it is in fact qiyas. It is in fact prohibited analogy, syllogism in reasoning. And it is not accepted as a proof in Islam. It is the base of a garment and misleading. So, especially in the midst of the rampant formalization of religion, which is slowly destroying the traditions and culture of the archipelago because they are considered contrary to the Islamic teachings. So, there is a footnote, Sumanto al-Qurtubi, so Qurtubi from the city of Cordoba in Spain. So I don't know if this man from origin Al-Andalus. I don't know. Sumanto al-Qurtubi wrote specifically on the phenomenon of the marginalization of the culture and the tradition of the archipelago after Islamization. Specifically, during the New Order government, he described the encounter between world religions and local religions, one of which was the presence of Islam, which of course came into contact with the local religions and traditions of the archipelago that first existed. From that, it is inevitable that encounters occurs in various spaces. Simors in Sumanto al-Qurtubi and Tedi Kholiluddin, Agama dan budaya Nusantara pasca Islam Sasi. Semarang, Elsa Press, 2020. So it is the end of this first part, and I will continue because it is a very interesting article, treading the footsteps of Wali Songo as the shepherd of Islam Nusantara. التمس الدعاء. الله معكم. إلى اللقاء. مع السلامة.